risks and the opportunities for reimagining education in university. It's time to move beyond expertise alone. Let's talk about real learning, real connection, real change for adults in our classrooms and, the future of adult education. Have you ever sat in a lecture and wondered, is this really the best way to learn? Universities pride themselves on sharing knowledge, but too often teaching becomes an afterthought, something anybody with a PhD or expert in the field is expected just to know how to do. Here's the truth. Teaching isn't about dumping content into a room full of people. It's about connection, curiosity, creating safe spaces where learning can transform lives. So in Beyond the Lecture series, we're asking hard questions. Why isn't the science of adult learning valued? How can we move from sage to stage to real facilitation? And what does it actually mean to teach adults in 2025 and beyond? If you care about the future of education, whether you're an academic, a learning designer, or a lifelong learner yourself, you're in the right place. Welcome to Beyond the Lecture. In this episode, we unpack the language of education, because language is important in learning. Why do we use words like pedagogy, meaning to lead the child, when we're teaching adults? We explore the critical shift towards andragogy, Heutagogy, and why recognizing these distinctions can transform how we approach adult teaching. So we'll recap the words pedagogy, discussing why language is important and why it's problematic in adult learning. We'll look at Malcolm Knowles, who is said to be the father of adult learning, and the rise of his theory of andragogy, or his approach rather. We'll introduce Heutagogy, learning how to learn. We'll talk about what universities are missing out on. And then we'll reflect on our education structures. I think it's important to remember that words shape mindsets, and mindsets shape learning environments. So language is important. Now, pedagogy is a Greek term, and it's derived, I'm not sure that I'm going to say this properly, from the word pedagogos, meaning leader of children. Pedagogy is a teacher-led learning model. Thus, in the pedagogical model, the teacher leads the curriculum. The curriculum is defined and organised by subjects. The teacher-led tradition in education referenced pedagogy as often preferable for younger learners. Interesting, isn't it? It's interesting that in an adult learning environment, that this is a term that's used strongly. So, but we do know that adult learners are different to child learners. And they, in a study from Damas and Keenan in 2020, found that in contrast with a child learner, the adult learner can be plagued with personal and professional constraints. They found the relationship between intrinsic motivation and successful achievement is reciprocal. The adult learner, therefore, needs a different approach, a different teacher-learner relationship that is established in pedagogy, andragogy, leading adults, assumes that the teacher has an awareness of the adult learner who is affected by life experiences, readiness to learn, orientation to learning, and motivation to learn. Now, the art and science of facilitating adult learning is what Knowles called his approach. It is described as a learner-centered approach to education where meaningful learning experiences and outcomes are derived from adult choices about what, when, why, and how they learn. And, as people grow, we change. Pedagogy sees knowledge transmitted from educator to learner, whereas andragogy, we're looking at the educator becoming a facilitator of learning. Scholars claim today that adult learners expect to have power and control in their learning. And this is where our world is changing. And we're coming to there's new terminology that it's evolving. One of the ones I like is Heutagogy. And arguably, it's the next step in the philosophical maturity of the lifelong learner who is transitioning from educator-directed to self-directed learning. So scholars like, I can't pronounce his name, Alditson in 2019 found that the new way of leading learning for adults is required if we're going to address the insufficiencies of the pedagogical and the andragogical approach. Other scholars conclude that the rapid change experienced in our contemporary society through globalization and technical advancement has supported a natural progression from andragogy to heutagogy. So our approaches to adult learning needs to be transforming. Our world is changing and technology brings a new dimension. Technology, globalization, brings a new dimension. So heutagogy is where adults can become self-directed learners. We see that the internet and online education, Wikipedia, I guess, was the start, but people can seek their own language, their own learning, and in a language that suits them. So we see a lot of the world shifting as this is our learning world is shifting. We're seeing that workplace learning facilities are actually enrolling their own, they've got their own learning plan. Workplace learning has is becoming more valued over the years than the university qualification. So our education structures and learning leaders, we need to change so that we can really meet the needs of all learners. And I think that's what's difficult in adult learning today, because all adult learners are not the same. All adult learners are not motivated by the same thing. They're not at the same level of fundamental skill and knowledge. It doesn't mean that they cannot learn. It means that they are all different. Heutagogy is derived from the Greek word heuristic, I'm not sure how to say that, meaning that the learner discovers knowledge for themselves, and it can be independent of formal learning. So we're seeing this pattern of of self-learning really in the adult learning environment. I think it's really important that we, as educators, identify where adults are getting their learning from, and their capability and competence. The teacher's role here in this knowledge economy, as they call it, is changing as the learner's access to knowledge changes. We cannot be just the facilitators of knowledge. We cannot be just dumping knowledge on people. We've got to become skilled educators. In a recent study, I think it's Barron 2021, he proposes that the current structure of the adult learning system has to focus on creating employees and consumers, which calls into meaning. You know, what is the meaning of universities? Is it for developing thinking, or are we creating employees and consumers? And so this current structure, therefore, doesn't adequately meet the needs of learners today. The scholars warn that only 1/3 of American higher education students believe that they will graduate with the skills and knowledge necessary for work. It's rife with interesting new ways that adult educators of adult, have to look at our education structures, and how do we empower learning and learners so that we can make the world, or contribute to making the world, a better place. When we shift from pedagogy to heutagogy, we shift from content delivery to learning design. We still use the principles of andragogy, but it's not a blanket. All adults learn like this. So I guess the call to action here is to think about one change you can make in your teaching and learning designs to recognise and access the self-directedness of adult learners today. I'd love you to share your thoughts below. So thank you for joining me on this journey beyond the lecture. If today's episode has sparked new thinking for you, I'd love to hear about it. Please share your reflections. Tag me, Lisa Ellen, Educators Advocate, and leave a review if it helps more educators and lifelong learners to find these conversations. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you know when the next one's out. But until then, keep asking questions, keep learning boldly, and remember, it's not just about what you know. It's how you invite others into the learning journey. I'll see you next time on Beyond the Lecture. I